Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And we have a really important subject to talk about and a really fabulous guest. Michelle Hutchens is here today, and she is coming to talk to us about her story and her situation. She was working at one of the at the Hyatt Tamaya here in New Mexico, and she was let go. She was fired because she would not get the vaccine. Now, I want to preface the show with saying that I'm not giving medical advice, and neither is Michelle. We're just going to tell her story, and I'm going to talk to you today about the law. And I'm going to talk to you about the lawsuit that she has brought against the Tamaya Hyatt for letting her go, and another coworker as well. We're going to talk about the Nuremberg Code, and we're going to talk about the Declaration of Helsinki. And so this is going to be a really important show for you to share with your friends. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Now, before I bring her on, a couple things I want to mention. Yesterday, I talked about this. New York City will require proof of vaccination for indoor dining and fitness. So it's begun, okay? And this comes from, I guess this was NPR today. Acting Boston mayor uses slavery, Trump to shoot down questions about vaccine passports. And I'm going to read just a bit of this. Acting Boston Mayor Kim Janey shot down talks of mandating proof of vaccination in the city, comparing such papers to the Jim Crow era and former President Donald Trump's birthism theories. Well, here we go. I'll read what she has to say. She says, "We know that those types of things are difficult to enforce when it comes to vaccine." Janey, a Democrat, said Tuesday when she was asked if she's considering mandating vaccine passports. There's a long history in this country of people needing to show their papers, whether we're talking about this from the standpoint of, as a way to during slavery, post-slavery, as recent as what the immigrant population has to go through, she continued. So this is quite interesting. These cities and these governors are being asked if they're going to mandate the vaccine in order to get into restaurants. But Michelle, I want to talk to you, and I want the audience to hear your story. First of all, let me say thank you for coming on the show, and welcome to High Road to Humanity.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I'm really glad you contacted me. I'm in New Mexico. We're talking about the Pueblos, which are sovereign nations. And so they are the first that I see to, say that you have to get the vaccine. Tell us your story. What happened?
Well, just to be clear, the Santa Ana Pueblo, I was a former employee of Sandia also, which is well known in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. They have mandated it for everyone except, so I did at the Tamaya Resort, which is a part of the Sandia Pueblo. The casino has been mandated because Hyatt is the part ownership over Tamaya. We haven't been mandated, but what has happened and what I want to give a voice to is the harassment and the discrimination and the hostile work environment that is created to force you to go do that. Does that make sense?
Yes. So, well, what happened? So you were working, and what did your boss, somebody over you came and said, what? You have to take the vaccine? Or what did they say to you?
It was just a constant barrage of making you feel guilty. Michelle, if you would just get the vaccine, we wouldn't have to do this. So I was a director over the spa. You wouldn't have to wear the mask. We wouldn't have to mandate testing. We wouldn't have to. Almost every time I was in a meeting, that it was centered towards me. So I want to give you an example of how bad the harassment actually got, which is what prompted me to go get legal representation. Okay. So at one point, everybody has to wear this, and I probably shouldn't say some of these words, sorry.
It's okay.
and mandatory testing every month. So, mind you, everybody was required, vaccinated, unvaccinated, didn't matter.
Had to have the
So
testing. And you did that. You had the testing.
Well, no, I didn't. I snuck under the radar. I never went. They weren't really watching that yet. But the mask, yes, you had to wear it 100% of the time, everybody. Okay. So I walked into the HR director's office one day and I had mine on. It was a little below my nose. The general manager, the assistant HR director, and the HR director were in the office. None of them had their mask on. They didn't have it on. The policy at the time, was everybody. I had mine on. It was a little below so I could breathe.
Right.
The general manager pointed at me and said, put it up on your nose.
Wow.
It was humiliating and embarrassing. When she got up and finally left, I yanked it off and I looked at the HR director and I said, why in the heck am I being singled out? He goes, we're vaccinated. That is the kind of harassment and discrimination I experienced the entire time I was there. And I was like, I'm done. They are it was this sneaky way of trying to force me and a lot of my staff to get the
vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, we're not giving medical advice here. We're telling Michelle's story. So I want to say that you did file a lawsuit, or you sent a letter. I have it here. I'm going to read some of it. On July 26, 2021, against the Hyatt Regency Tamaya Resort Spa. And, there's some stuff in this. I won't give the name of the attorney, but man, she's a smart cookie. I want to read a little of this, you guys. And this is going to be me talking about some of this stuff too. And please feel free, Michelle, to interject at any point. But what she says in here, and I just want to read some of this. She says, an employer has no legal authority to prescribe medication other than an employer has no legal authority to prescribe medication, offer medical advice, much less mandate a medical service into its employees. Scientific peer review studies prove that wearing a medical mask or cloth mask over the face for long hours and over a long duration of time, and especially during physical labor, such as giving a massage, can be harmful to one's physical and mental health. On the other hand, masks have been proven to be safe or to stop a virus. Therefore, it has not been proven, is what she says. Therefore, employers requiring employees to wear masks is essentially forced participation in a medical experiment without the employee's consent. And, this just comes back to, I pulled up, you guys, the Declaration of Helsinki, and I pulled up the Nuremberg Code. And let me just say, and I just want to, get into this a little bit. The Nuremberg Code, if you don't know what it is, it's a set of research ethic principles for human experimentation created by the USA versus Brandt court as one result of the Nuremberg trials at the end of the Second World War. Now, in a review written on the 50th anniversary of the Brandt verdict, Katz writes that a careful reading of the judgment suggests that the authors wrote the code for the practice of human experimentation whenever it is being conducted. Okay. And this seems to be what it is. And this, let me just also talk really quick about the Helsinki. It says, before World War II, there was no formal international statement of ethical principles to guide research with human participants existed. Nothing existed. So researchers were left to rely on organization. So they came up with this, the Helsinki, the Declaration of Helsinki, and it says, because the atrocities that were found to have been committed by medical researchers in Germany who used involuntary, unprotected participants drawn from Nazi concentration camps, the 1947 Nuremberg Code was established. And so the World Medical Association adopted this. I think it's wonderful that your attorney has brought all of this to light. What's the situation right now, Michelle? You've sent this in. Have you received a response?
So just to clear up, also, there hasn't been a lawsuit yet. What my lawyer has done is sent a cease and desist letter to my employer.
Thank you for the clarification.
yeah.
That's correct. Yes.
And it does state that there could be further legal action. And what she did simply is she stated our rights. We have the right to a medical exemption. We have the right to a religious exemption, both of which she in that letter stated that I was going to do.
Yeah. Do you mind if I read this? Do you mind if I read this part? Yeah, it says, moreover, a mask mandate, she writes this very well, by the way. Moreover, a mask mandate may also violate an employee's religious or spiritual beliefs. For many followers of Jesus Christ, the wearer of a cloth mask over one's face is tantamount to a satanic ritual that goes against the very tenets of the Holy Bible. Under the First Amendment of the Constitution, Title VII of the Civil Acts Right of 1964 and New Mexico law, any policy that infringes on an employee's religious or spiritual beliefs is deemed harassing, discriminatory, and prejudicial, and accommodations are required. Now, employees are entitled to invoke a religious exemption to the mask mandate, and Ms. Hutchins hereby invokes the religious exemption against the mask mandate. Hey, we got to go to commercial break, you guys. This is Nancy Yearout. I'm here today with Michelle Hutchens, and we're talking about the COVID vaccine and if you have to take it, if you're going to be forced to. This is Nancy Yearout. We'll be right back. All right. Hey, it's Nancy Yearout, and this is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Michelle Hutchens. I just want to say, Michelle, I just think it's wonderful that you're standing up. What are you doing right now? Are you collecting unemployment? Are you able to? Are you okay financially? I mean, what do you do in this situation?
We're waiting to see what the response will be from them on the exemptions that we have put there. And hopefully they understand that an employer can be held accountable for mandating these things. It's all spelled out in those. So I'm waiting to see what the response will be from the lawyers that are dealing with mine. And then we'll go from there. Not sure what I'm going to do financially right now. So I'm in a pretty good spot. I'm not too terribly worried about it. I mean, I did lose my main form of income and it will get critical at some point. But I'm being creative. We can all be creative. There's things out there. There's lots of jobs out there. And I do have a couple that I will probably be doing just to keep the boat afloat. But if I can do this, everybody can do this. You can put your rights out there and you can contact your HR department, as that's what I started with. And you can ask for these exemptions. And if it comes to a class action lawsuit, they're doing those all over the United States and they're winning them.
Right.
We need to stand up together and do this as a group. If you don't want to do it by yourself, find other like-minded people. I did. I'm not alone in this. I have people that are standing up with me.
Talk about that. Yeah, you have an assistant. She was the assistant spa director, Jana, right? Is it Jana? Jana. Okay. She was also, and she was going to be with us today, but she's a little under the weather. But she also was let go. Is that correct? I don't want you to get too much into it, but she stood up with you.
Yes, and technically we're not let go. They chose to take us off the schedule. Kind of a sneaky way of not having retaliation be brought on top of this. Because
were you terminated or not terminated? How did it work? Or did they just?
I don't know. I'm waiting to see what their lawyer says. When they walked us out, when they walked us literally off property, they said, we're taking you off the schedule for now. I think it was, and so does the lawyer, think it was a sneaky kind of clever way of not firing me, but firing me. So we're still kind of in limbo there, just to see, like I said, to see what the lawyer is going to do on their end, like how they're going to respond to
these how they're going to handle it.
Yeah.
Now, were you familiar with the Nuremberg Code and the Declaration of Helsinki before any of this?
I learned all of this on my own, and everybody needs to know these things. You need to know what's in the Constitution. You need to know what that Title VII class. I had to learn about all that stuff. And
Talk
now
about
I
it.
do.
Yeah.
Well, the First Amendment of the Constitution that protects so many things, not only just free speech. It protects a lot of our religious and spiritual beliefs. So does that Class 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I'm reading my notes too.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I have them here too.
and the Nuremberg Code is global. That
Yes.
also protects us.
Yes.
We can't be harassed. We have inalienable rights, which is what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights talk about. Inalienable means they can't be revoked. A pandemic, even the president of the United States can't revoke any of that. It's set in stone. So people need to get empowered with that knowledge and know about it. And I just started researching and getting familiar with it. I didn't know any of this stuff either. And I think a lot of the people that walk around with the masks, they don't take the time to educate themselves.
Well, yeah. Right. Well, and this, I just want to say, I want to talk about the Helsinki, which is the World Medical Association, and it started in 1964, but it's been revised. I want to just talk about that a little bit. As I got into this too, I found it very interesting to find out. So it says that the declaration has been revised several times. The first revision was conducted in 1975, expanding the declaration considerably, increasing its depth, updating its terminology, and adding concepts such as oversight by an independent committee. Now, the second was in 1983, and the third was in 1989. These revisions were comparatively minor, primarily involving clarifications and updates in terminology. The fourth was in 1996, was also in minor scope, but notably added a phrase that effectively precluded the use of inherent placebos, drugs with no active ingredients used to test the safety and efficiency of other drugs in clinical trials or provide a patient with mental relief when a particular standard of care exists. The fifth revision was adopted by the World Medical Association in Scotland. I find this really fascinating because I'm Scottish. And in Edinburgh in 2000, it was substantial, and many of the changes were viewed as controversial in the medical community. The fifth revision reorganized the structure of the document and expanded it by creating a 9-paragraph introduction section, which broadened the scope of the declaration to include scientists as well as physicians. What I find interesting also, and this goes on, you guys, this is pages long, and there's another revision in 2008 and one in 2013, respectively. But what's interesting that I read a lot of this, and even in the Nuremberg Code, it talks about how the physicians today go by this. And what I see, and I just want to get your opinion on this, your personal opinion, is that a lot of the physicians don't agree with what's going on. And this is like part of what they go by. Have you heard that as well?
Well, yeah, there's thousands of doctors that are standing up out there. And of course, mainstream media, you won't hear about them if that's all you watch. The frontline doctors being a good example, trying to get this information out. And yeah, it's out there. You just have to look in the right places.
Yeah. And if you guys don't know this is interesting too. There's 10 points of the Nuremberg Code. And I feel like I'm just reading this to you guys, but I feel like they need to know. So bear with me on this. I'm going to read you some of the points. There's 10. The first one's a little lengthy, but sit back and relax and listen to this. Number 1, the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. Wow, that says it all right there, doesn't it? And that's the first line, you guys. This means that the person involved should have legal capacity to give consent, should be situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of constraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements of the subject matter involved as to enable him to make an understanding and enlightened decision.
Right.
And it goes on. Number 2, the experiment should be such as to yield fruitful results for the good of society, procurable by other methods or means of study, and not random and unnecessary in nature. I like number 3. The experiment should be so designed and based on the results of animal experimentation and a knowledge of the natural history of the disease or other problems under study that the anticipated results will justify the performance of the experiment. There have been no studies. You see?
And can I add something there?
Yes, please do. Please do.
They have not even isolated the virus. They've not isolated. How where's the science then? If you haven't even isolated it, you don't know anything about it. There's no science. So then how do you treat it? That's why it's all experimental. They haven't even isolated it.
It is all experimental. And that's what this whole, just so you guys know, that's what the Declaration of Helsinki and the Nuremberg Code talk about. Okay. Because this happened, you guys, this happened a long time ago. And that's why these things were put into place. Number 4, the experiment should be so conducted as to avoid all unnecessary physical and mental suffering and injury. Boy, that's applicable, isn't it?
Well, and if I could add something there.
Yes.
Employers that are forcing someone to choose, they're forcing people between providing for their families and being victims of experimental medical experimentation. That's what that's alluding to. They're doing that now.
Well, yeah, because if I went out right now and decided I wanted to get a broadcasting job, it's funny, yesterday, I'm just going to say this because it's how I feel. I always kind of look, see what's going on in the world. And there was a really cool broadcasting job. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool, And then I saw in the notes, must be vaccinated. And I thought, oh, yeah. So this is what it's come to, you guys. You can't go out and thank God I'm self-employed. Because my religious beliefs say that this is not, my intuition says it's not good. And my religious beliefs say, don't take this. So I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just talking about myself, but I'm telling you my feelings and how I feel. Number 5, no experiment should be conducted where there is a prior reason to believe that death or disabling injury will occur, except perhaps in those experiments where the experimental physicians also serve as subjects. Yeah. Yeah. And, I just will say that a lot of people are becoming ill because of this vaccine. And I can't tell you which one, because there's several out there. And again, not giving medical advice, just saying, what's happening here. Number 6, the degree of risk to be taken should never exceed that determination by the humanitarian importance of the problem to be solved by the experiment. I feel like we're being experimented on.
We are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The experiment, and then it says proper preparations should be made and adequate facilities provided to protect the experimental subject against even remote possibilities of injury, disability, or death. Number 8, the experiment should be conducted only by scientifically qualified persons. The highest degree of skill and care should be required through all stages of the experiment of those who conduct or engage in the experiment. Hey, we got to go to commercial break here, but I'm here talking to Michelle Hutchens, and we're talking about the Nuremberg Code. We're talking about the Declaration of Helsinki. We're talking about how we're going to survive this. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Michelle Hutchens, and Michelle's standing up and she's saying, hey, what they're doing to us is not cool. Now, let me just clarify this. When you're working at the Tamaya, you're working for the resort, but it's actually, the Pueblo, the Santa Ana Pueblo, correct?
Right.
So, yeah. And when it comes to the Pueblos, there's kind of different rules. I just want to say that if you guys aren't familiar, a lot of these guys, because they call it a sovereign nation, meaning that, they can make their own rules. Do you want to address that a little bit, or?
Well, I had to learn about that because
Let's talk about it.
That is a common misconception.
Okay.
And, they have a dotted line right up to Congress. They're not above federal law. And sometimes they think they are.
Yes, I agree with that.
But they
Right
have
there.
that dotted line to Congress Well, who is the entity that put HIPAA together years ago? It was Congress. So they're not above HIPAA law. They're not above federal law, and their policies to mandate to work at their places, they will not hold water. They will be held liable. And I don't think they actually know that. I don't think they know that. I didn't know a lot of this stuff till I actually started reading it, and it's eye-opening and it's empowering. So yeah, they're not above federal law. No policy is. So my big message I want to just get out to all New Mexicans is we've gone through a lot through this whole the lockdowns and all the things that we've been in. I don't even know why they don't talk about New Mexico as much as they do New York and other places, because I think we have been harassed here horribly with the governor and the mandates and all that. So
I agree.
It's just time to stand up. You know your rights. It's empowering to know they can't do this. They literally can't. There's lots of laws that protect us.
Yeah. And, I have to say, and our religious rights need to be, this is against my spiritual and my religious beliefs as a Christian. And I don't know what religion you are, Michelle, but I know that it's against your spiritual and your religious. I just feel this whole thing is it's not good. I want to finish reading, if you don't mind, really quick,
Nope,
the last of it.
Mhm.
No, I'm so glad you said that, because you helped me, because I've always heard that, they get away with a lot because of, these reservations are able to do a lot of stuff. But thank you for, telling us that, because I hadn't researched the law there. And I'm not a lawyer, but hey, I'm pretty
Me
sure.
neither. Me neither.
But
The
we're,
law is the law.
yeah, we can read. So
Right.
anyway, number 10 on this is, during the course of the experiment, the scientist in charge must be prepared to terminate the experience at any stage if he has probable cause to believe in the exercise of the good faith, superior skill, and careful judgment required of him that a continuation of the experiment is likely to result in injury, disability, or death to the experimental subject. And that's what it says. Yeah, this is some really scary stuff that we're talking about here. And I want to talk a little bit more about what is in your, and it's a complaint more than, I guess it's a letter to them addressing. And I'll just say that I want to read this because your attorney did a fabulous job
Yeah,
writing
she
this
did.
up. I just want to give her credit. Wow. So I'm going to back up. And you guys sit back and just listen. This is important that you hear this. Additionally, an employer, Hyatt, cannot legally require its employees to participate in experimental COVID-19 testing, especially when the employee is perfectly healthy. Hyatt does not have the legal authority to give medical advice, prescribe medications, or to mandate experimental medical testing. And then she goes on. I like this part up here where she says, well, she talks about the Nuremberg Code. So let me just include that. Hey, why not? We got some time. So hold on. She says the COVID-19 tests, the vaccinations are only authorized by the FDA, but they are not approved. Okay. So thereby circumventing the standard protocols and channels of conducting clinical trial experiments and documenting side effects, none of which has been done in this case. Thirdly, if employees are compelled to undergo a test without their informed consent and without financial compensation, such mandate by Hyatt may be prosecuted as a crime against humanity under human trafficking codes and the Nuremberg Code, which she says the right to avoid the imposition of human experimentation is fundamentally rooted in the Nuremberg Code of 1947, has been ratified by the 1964 Declaration of Helsinki, and further codified in the United States Code of Federal Regulations. Now, the United States Constitution, as well as the state of New Mexico Constitution, this is really important, you guys, protect the fundamental rights of we the people. These rights are inherent and are guaranteed by more fact than we were born human. The Constitution of the United States was made by and for the protection of the people of the United States. She goes on to say, League versus DeYoung, she quotes some different cases. All persons are born equally free, have certain natural inherent and ineligible rights, among which are the rights of enjoying and defending life and liberty, of acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and of seeking and obtaining safety and happiness. That's out of the New Mexico Constitution. And it goes on to say the constructive discharge of an employee for refusing to take the COVID-19 test as an experimental medical test is a violation of that employee's due process right to life and liberty under the 14th Amendment, and an invasion of the zone of privacy and right to bodily integrity, which have been held to emanate from various Bill of Rights amendments, including the First, Fourth, and Fifth, as well as the Ninth Amendment, which speaks of essential but unenumerated rights. All of this stuff that's going on, to me, and I'm not a lawyer, is illegal.
It is.
All of
There's
it.
there's nothing above the Constitution. There's nothing above that.
So why do you think people aren't standing up? Let's just talk about this. I mean, what do you think? Have you talked, I mean, as this has happened to you and you've had conversation with others, have you seen this happen to other people? What's your take on this?
Fear porn. If all you're doing is watching CNN and you're being spoon-fed this fear all day long, every day, yeah, of course you're going to be scared to death. Well, who owns the media?
Yeah.
Why do they say the exact same thing every time on every story? I mean, to literally verbatim, if you look at the different channels, the same stories will be word by word the same. Well, why?
Right. It's almost
You've got to
conditioning.
start seeing past, it's the condition. Programming is TV.
Mhm,
There's a
mhm.
reason it's called programming. It's programmed. We've been programmed to not ask questions. Well, if the government says it's okay, if my doctor says it's okay, then why do I need to know? Why do I need to research? That's why they're buying into the fear porn and they're not researching things themselves. I think a lot of people are too scared, honestly. They just want to have their normal little life and have their blinders on. You keep doing that and they're going to mandate everybody have it. That's where it's going. If we don't all stand up, it's headed that way. So it's time. We have to do it in groups, do it together.
I agree. And that's why we're doing the show today. And that's why I agreed to have you on it, because I believe that this has gotten out of hand. It's really interesting. I go to the grocery store. It's weird. You go to the grocery store, some people have masks on, some people don't. It's the weirdest thing you ever saw. And I'm thinking, wait a minute now, I'm a healthy person and I'm not afraid of somebody next to me. I mean, this is a really kind of, and I see the fear. I guess that's what bothers me more than anything. Just like you were talking about, I can, and especially in the elderly, not that I'm some young spring chicken, but I'm pretty healthy and I work out and all of that. But, but I see the elderly and they have these masks on and they are at the grocery store and they look scared to death.
They do.
And I feel terrible. I think, and I just want to say, oh my God, take that off. You're fine. You don't need to worry about that. The mask, in my opinion, again, not giving medical advice, but in my opinion, the mask hurts people. Every time I have to put one on. Yeah. And I wanted you to talk about that, especially in your job, because I've had to put one on when I go get my hair done, or I have to put one on when I do this or that. And I'm like gasping for air. We've got about a couple minutes, but what was that like for you? Because you do massages and things. I mean, talk about that a minute, if you don't mind.
Well, I was getting to the point, that's what made me, want to do the medical exemption also with the religious, was I was getting 3 to 4 migraines a week. You breathing in your own toxic waste, which is what is going into that mask, you're gonna get sick. There's been a 30% increase in throat cancers. I've had 2 of my massage therapists, literally the doctor wrote a note saying they have mask poisoning. They need to stay home for a few days. Imagine doing 8 hours of massage with a mask on. Also imagine having your guest lay down on the table with it on in the little hole. It's ridiculous. Then you can go next door and get a facial with no mask. That was one of the things I pointed out to him. I'm like, how much sense does that make? You're allowing us to give facials with no mask, but next door, you got to put one on to go have a massage. I was getting so sick. I literally couldn't do it anymore. I cannot go back to that environment. And if other people are out there and they're going every day and they're putting it on and they're getting sick, you're hurting yourself.
Mhm.
It's not, the FDA says that the surgical little masks, the little blue and black ones, are class 2 medical devices. Your employer cannot tell you to wear a medical device unless they're a doctor.
That's
They're
true.
impersonating a medical professional. They can't do it.
I
So
agree.
yeah, it made me very ill.
Listen, we got to go to commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this. You guys, I'm here today with Michelle Hutchens. It's really great that she's standing up. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we'll be right back. It's High Road to Humanity. I'm here today in the last segment with Michelle Hutchens. I hope you guys are sharing the show, because I want you to realize what a brave soul she is standing up. This is what we all need to do, and stand up. And I want to talk about the children quickly, because I have grandkids. And my grandkids, I just don't want to see, and they're in Michigan, they're not here in New Mexico, but don't want them to go back to school and have to wear a mask. Now, I saw yesterday Rio Rancho schools said that you're going to have to wear a mask. And for little kids, I just want you to know this is really uncomfortable, and it's so unhealthy, in my opinion. Again, not giving medical advice, but just very unhealthy for little kids and unhealthy for adults. And I just believe that the more of us stand up and say something, that maybe we can put a stop to this. What do you think, Michelle?
Oh, I agree. There's a little town in New Mexico called Floyd, New Mexico. I don't know if you heard about them. Little bitty town. And they have said, no way are we going to allow this in any part of our town for our kids, they've completely put it out there like, nope, not doing it. Well, we
God
need
bless.
more New Mexico cities to do that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
to say no, to say absolutely not. It's out of respect for yourself. Honestly, now we were talking on the break, and you said you filed for unemployment because you had to today, and because you just don't know what the situation is.
Well,
I bet the people, people with unemployment are
scary.
probably like,
this is the scariest thing I've ever done. I understand the fear, but at some point you got to go past that and be like, I have to stand up for what's right, no matter what the consequences here now are. In the long run, I'm going to look back and go, I'm glad I did this. I'm
Yes.
glad I was one of those that stood up,
Well, yeah. And I want to say that too. I had a rabbi on yesterday, and God bless him. He was a nice man, but it was so sad. He was so programmed by the news, the mainstream media, that he actually said to me, the government's in charge. And I looked at him and I said, no, God is in
It's for the
charge.
people, by the people. Yeah.
But God is in charge. And he looked at me,
Absolutely.
and I was like, how come you don't know God is in charge?
Right.
So,
That should come from him.
well, and I laugh about it, but it's sad. How can a man of supposedly of God, and please, I'm not trying to put him down by any means. I'm just trying to make a point here. Why do I realize that God's in charge and he didn't? And I need you guys to realize that God is in charge. And we need to say prayers, and we do need to stand up. God wants us to stand up. We are his children. He loves us. And whether you call him God, whether you call it a higher power, the divine source, I hear all different names, the special names, but it's the divine, it's the higher, it's God. And, he wants us to stand up. He loves us. He doesn't want us to be harmed. And I'm watching, we were talking about the people in the grocery store, but I'm also watching people. This is weird. And I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but I want to bring it up since we're on this subject today. Every day on my phone, I see somebody else has died from, like, some famous person. Every day there's a death. Every day there's another death of another famous person. And I'm wondering, has anybody else noticed that this is going on? Have you? Have you seen it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And but nobody's saying anything. And a lot of these people have been vaccinated. And that's another thing I want to bring up. Lindsey Graham, they had yesterday, I was talking about on my show, because he has been vaccinated and now he has the COVID.
Yeah. Oh, they're saying that they're the super spreaders of the new that's got to be frustrating. That's got to be an eye-opening to logical people. Like, okay, so I did everything I was supposed to do. I went and got
Right.
and now I'm a super spreader. Logically, how much sense does this make? It's not about our health. It's beyond that. It's control.
Mhm.
There's a lot to it. I mean, that alone, and the celebrities that are now getting COVID, that's a whole nother show.
That's a whole nother show in itself. I know, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I just, and I want to get this show out to people, and I don't know, we'll see if they censor me or not. If they do, I'll put this on my website. But, it's important that we talk about this, and it's really important that you came on today. Michelle, are you married? Do you have a family? What is your family? Do you have family here in the area? I mean, are they supportive? I just want to ask that question.
I have little kiddos, and I
Okay.
do not allow them to live in New Mexico because of what we've gone through. And they will never wear a mask. So they are with their
Okay.
daddy and in a good environment where they don't have to do that. And that's the sacrifice I've had to make, because I do love New Mexico. I'd love to see us stand up. If we all did it today, it'd be over tomorrow. It really would, or very close. So yeah, I have little ones. I know I don't look young enough, but I
Yes, you do.
My
Yes, you
youngest
do.
is 8. My youngest is
Aw.
8. My oldest is 30. So I have a nice range there, but they don't live here. And for that reason, I won't subject them to wearing a mask or the school systems here, not till we get it fixed.
Well,
So,
yeah, and it's really interesting to see the divide in people. I've seen this so much, a lot of people, like we talked about, have been so programmed and they're so afraid, and you try to explain to them, but you can't. Either people see it or they don't. And I want to say that, it would be nice if everybody could wake up and see what we see, but I think everybody's going to wake up at their own time. But the problem is that I see about this, there's a catch-22 here. If people don't wake up soon, we're in big trouble.
I think we're
Yeah,
approaching a near-death experience. There's a lot
think
of
so.
people
I do
talking about that out there. And I think that's what it's going to take for the rest of people to wake up and go, oh, this is real. I think it's going to be by the skin of our teeth. I think in the end, God wins.
Oh,
I think all
yes.
of this will be fine, but it's going
Yes.
to get a lot worse and a lot more scary until we all change it. It's we the people are the ones that have to change it.
Right. I
You
want
can't wait on Trump. You can't wait on
No.
anyone else. It's
Yeah.
time, people. It's time.
We
Mhm.
have to do it, us. And I want to read a little bit more of this. We've got about 5 minutes left to the show, but I want to read a little more of what she wrote. I have to commend her. Please mention to her how wonderful I think her letter was. She does say these constitutional protections reaffirm Ms. Hutchins' basic human rights to bodily autonomy and the right to voluntary informed consent. By choosing to mandate experimental COVID-19 tests and facial mask, Hyatt is forcing employees to choose between providing for their families, I may have said this already, and between the victim of human experiments. She goes on to say, not only is it illegal for Hyatt to mandate its employees in participating in experimental medical testing, it may also violate an employee's religious and spiritual beliefs. And she goes on with that. Towards the end, she says, importantly, Hyatt, as the employer, bears the burden of proof to show that lifting the mask mandate against spa employees will compromise the health and safety of others. Likewise, Hyatt must prove that lifting the mandatory COVID-19 testing of employees will compromise the health and safety of others. Hyatt must also prove that an emergency exists, that the masks are safe and effective, and that the COVID-19 testing is not only accurate, but has no side effects. The employees do not bear the burden of proving the opposite. That's true. We're just being
Yep.
experimented on right now, you guys.
Yep. And that's very important. The employer must show the evidence of direct threat. They are the ones that are at risk for committing a felony, actually, per Title 18 U.S. Code in the conspiracy against rights. So there's a lot of juicy stuff out there if you just do a little research.
Yeah. So if somebody comes into your workplace, you guys, and tells you you have to wear a mask and you have to be tested and that you have to get the vaccine, you need to be able to say, no, that's against my rights to do that. And if they do tell you that you don't have a job any longer, then you do have the right to stand up and get legal counsel. And I think it's fabulous. Now, I have a question before we get out of here today. Has the attorney said that she's had other people come to her?
Oh yeah, they're inundated. They are absolutely inundated with people trying to do exactly what I'm doing. So yeah, there's lots of good attorneys out there and they're working for us. And if you need that kind of representation, that's what they're there for.
How can people
fabulous.
contact? She's wonderful. How can people contact you, or can they email you if they have questions or anything, Michelle, or
Yeah,
they
I
want to
would love
support
hear.
you?
I
Yeah.
think there's probably a big old Hyatt family out there because I've contacted several of them actually in different
Okay.
states that, you know, if they wanted to join this, we could be a big old group ourselves, even more so, and get them to really pay attention and
What's
start
your-
to think about what they're doing.
How do they contact you, Michelle?
My email address is kind of funny. It's loco Michelle, LOCO Michelle, MICHELLE @me.com. Yeah,
Okay.
they're welcome
And
to.
yeah, and she's not crazy, you guys. She's not loco. It's just a place she used to work. We were teasing about that before the
That's
break.
right.
I'm just really excited you came on. I will share the show with everybody and I wish you the best. I hope you'll come back and let me know the outcome and
I
let
would
the
love to.
audience know, what happened. And
love to.
God bless you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Nancy. You too. Thank you.
Okay. All right, you guys. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. I want you guys to stand up, man. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Connect the dots and keep the motion. Can achieve your goal. Let's hit the high road.
Hey, you guys, join me next week on The High Road for more stories filled with wisdom, love, and hope for our future. Have a fabulous week and know that by staying on the high road, you will make it to your destination. Visit my website, nancyyearout.com, where you can book a private session to learn how to tap into your own abilities. And check out my YouTube channel. It's Nancy Yearout's High Road to Humanity.
'Cause you can achieve your goal.